Trudeau threatening Trump, the outgoing Canadian Prime Minister warning President Trump of immediate retaliation.
Elon Musk knows that Pierre Poilievre is his guy in Canada.
Tesla taking the biggest hit, down 6%. That's not the only potential.
Canada has recently introduced a significant move that has raised eyebrows within the automotive industry.
But Canada now has its first ever fully functional, fully Canadian electric vehicle,
with the potential to impact the U.S. electric vehicle market. This new strategy could have noteworthy implications for both economies, especially in the context of the evolving EV landscape. But what prompted this development? And how might it affect the cross-border relationship in the automotive sector? Stay tuned as we explore the details of this unfolding situation, US tariffs and Canada's retaliation. In early 2025, President Donald Trump imposed sweeping tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China.
Donald Trump's tariff talk still trending even now, hours after the longest in modern-day history, and tonight world leaders continue to react,
aiming to address concerns over drug trafficking and illegal immigration. These measures included a 25% tariff on goods from Canada and Mexico, with Canadian oil and energy products facing a 10% tariff. Trump justified these actions by citing the need to curb the influx of drugs.
And I said to President Xi, you don't have much of a drug problem. Do you have a drug problem? No, no drug problem.
Particularly fentanyl, and to protect American economic interests. In response to these tariffs, Verhoeven has teamed up with trade veterans like Kenneth Smith Ramos from Mexico and former U.S. Congressman Kevin Brady to launch the Coalition for North American Trade, CNAT. This trio is on a mission to champion the enduring benefits of free trade and to steer the ship away from the stormy seas of the current trade war. They're rallying support from business leaders and politicians alike, aiming to turn the tide and restore stability to North American trade relations. The escalating trade tensions have raised concerns about the forthcoming economic slowdown and higher consumer prices across North America. Thus, according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the tariffs would cost American consumers between $120 billion to $225 billion per year, thus worsening inflation. Financial markets reacted adversely and saw a huge drop in major U.S. stock indices. These trade disputes, however, did not stop negotiation attempts. The Trump administration basically threw in an exemption for 1 month of new tariffs for any U.S. automakers importing vehicles from Mexico and Canada. This 1-month grace period, discreetly, was intended to afford time for automakers to rethink their plans, so it does not further disadvantage them economically while demonstrating the complexity and entanglements between North American trading relations. Aside from this, Canadian businesses are actively diversifying their markets away from the US in response to the tariffs. For example, the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers has been pushing for the diversion of oil exports from the US to avert the risks associated with one market. The largest pension fund in Canada would also state how overdependence should be avoided from a single market by looking into the area of economic diversification and competitiveness because of tariffs. Further, mineral exploration tax credits are being extended for another 2 years by the Canadian government to try and boost investment in domestically based exploration. This is aimed at advancing the mining sector and weaning operations off international investment, particularly Chinese investment. These kinds of actions all reflect an overarching policy of self-sufficiency and diversification, which places Canada in a better position to tackle challenges emerging from the prevailing trade climate. As trade tensions between the US and Canada escalate, a bold proposal from a Canadian leader could soon take aim at a major American company, adding fuel to the fire. NDP's proposed tariffs on Tesla. In response to escalating trade tensions initiated by US President Donald Trump's proposed tariffs on Canadian goods, Canada's New Democratic Party, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, announced a plan targeting Tesla vehicles. Singh announced a bold new initiative aimed at supporting Canadian auto workers.
Today is a day where we not only talk about solidifying the footprint of the auto industry here in Canada for the short term,
by reinstating and expanding the electric vehicle, EV, rebate program. If elected, Singh promises to restore the previous $5,000 rebate that was scrapped by the Liberal government in January 2025 and double it to $10,000 for Canadians purchasing a domestically manufactured EV. This move is part of a larger strategy to encourage the production and purchase of Canadian-made vehicles, securing jobs for auto workers in the face of economic uncertainty caused by trade tensions with the US. However, Singh also declared that under an NDP government, a 100% tariff would be imposed on Tesla vehicles, directly targeting the company due to its close ties with Donald Trump's administration. At the heart of Singh's plan is a strong commitment to Canadian workers and their livelihoods.
But it's been clear, given that we've got the threats of tariffs from Trump, that puts a lot of workers in Canada saying, will I lose my job?
He criticized both Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and Liberal leadership, hopeful Mark Carney, for policies that, according to Singh, would benefit corporations and the wealthy while leaving workers behind. Singh accused Poilievre of siding with billionaires like Elon Musk, who has openly endorsed him, and warned that Carney's proposed federal job cuts would only deepen the economic struggles of Canadians. Singh framed his policy as a way to counteract these threats by ensuring that government incentives and purchasing decisions prioritize Canadian labour and industry. A cornerstone of Singh's broader economic vision is the Build Canadian, Buy Canadian, which seeks to shelter and create unionised jobs within Canada. It contemplates several measures, such as barring US companies from federal procurement contracts in the face of US tariffs, giving preference to unionised workforces during bid selection, and tightening Canadian content requirements on publicly supported projects. Singh stressed that his view is one whereby not only would existing jobs be sustained, but new opportunities would be created for sectors including manufacturing, construction, and other important industries. His plan also emphasizes the use of Canadian-made products, especially steel, for government infrastructure projects. Singh's proposed measures arrive in a backdrop where Canadian auto workers face uncertainty as Trump has threatened the imposition of tariffs on all goods coming from Canada. The NDP has assured that in the event such tariffs come into effect, Canada would retaliate with tit-for-tat measures, specifically targeting Tesla, which has strong ties with Trump's administration. Singh argued that the program goes beyond retaliation, putting the emphasis on securing Canadian workers' rights and opportunities within an economic framework, instead of leaving them at the mercy of foreign developments. The continuation of 100% tariffs on EVs made in China, first put in place in late 2024, is another reminder of his party's protectionist sentiments. Singh persuaded Canadians to buy consciously in favour of local industries. He emphasised that the NDP is the party to fight for workers instead of billionaires, and that investing in Canadian-made EVs will protect jobs in Canada and build the Canadian economy. To his audience, he made it clear that buying Canadian vehicles is not only an economic decision, but a patriotic act that protects jobs. By tying his policies to substantial economic issues, Singh hopes to carve out a space for himself distinct from his political challengers, and thereby make a case for his leadership in the next federal election. Impact on Tesla's prices and sales in Canada. In a significant move affecting Canadian consumers, Tesla has announced substantial price increases across its entire vehicle lineup, effective February 1st, 2025. The Model 3, especially the performance trim, will see the most notable hike, with prices rising by up to $9,000. This adjustment elevates the Model 3 performance from $1,790 to $7,990. Other models, including the Model Y, Model S, and Model X, are set to see uniform price increases of $4,000 across all trims. These price adjustments coincide with the expiration of Canada's federal incentives for zero-emission vehicles, IZEV program, which previously offered a $5,000 incentive for electric vehicle purchases. The discontinuation of this program, combined with Tesla's price hikes, has significantly impacted the affordability of Tesla vehicles in Canada. Additionally, the increased prices have rendered some Tesla models ineligible for provincial rebates, further escalating the effective cost for consumers. The repercussions of these changes were evident in January 2025, as Tesla's sales in Canada plummeted by 70% compared to December 2024. This sharp decline mirrors a broader trend in the electric vehicle market, with overall EV and plug-in hybrid sales dropping by 79% during the same period. Other automakers, such as Chevrolet and Hyundai, also reported significant sales declines, indicating a market-wide response to the reduced incentives and increased prices. Industry experts attribute this downturn to a combination of factors, including the sudden halt of federal rebates and the subsequent price increases by manufacturers. James Hearn, Associate Director of Marketing Reporting, noted that Canadian consumers are highly price-sensitive, and these changes have negatively impacted their vehicle purchasing decisions. The loss of both federal and provincial incentives has made electric vehicles less accessible to a broader audience, dampening the momentum of EV adoption in the country. While the data focus on declination on a month-to-month basis, the year-on-year figure paints a more optimistic picture. According to S&P Global, EV sales overall in Canada rose 30% between January 2025 to January 2024. The existing uncertainty about incentive programs and pricing structures could still continue to sway consumer decisions in upcoming months. Automakers Polestar and General Motors, among others, have rolled out their incentives aside from the missing federal rebates to keep customers interested, while ushering them into electric mobility. The countermeasures are calls by Canadian politicians against the growing trade tensions, initiated by a 25% tariff on all goods entering the United States from Canada by Donald Trump. Chrystia Freeland, who has been touting herself as a candidate for Prime Minister, having formerly served as Deputy Prime Minister, mentioned a 100% tariff on Tesla cars coming from the US. "We will go after American stakeholders who matter to the White House," declares Freeland, adding that this is one part of an overall strategy to pressure important US constituencies. This has garnered different opinions among the population of Canada. Some critics argue that it is not right to single out Tesla among other issues. Others favor the move on such grounds as the association of the Tesla CEO with US adverse policies, which tend to go against Canadian interests. The discussion shows the difficulties of using targeted tariffs in the International Trade Dispute Punishment Yard. One other suggestion is that Canada has now also reduced or cleared out its 100% tariff imposed on all EVs that are made in China, which came into force in October 2024. Such a policy change would allow Chinese automakers into an open market that might enable more competition and result in cheaper EV models for consumers. This may also exert pressure on US automakers to generate an effective lobby to remove tariffs that make free trade more difficult than necessary, which in turn will benefit the entire North American automotive sector. Such continued trade tensions and proposed countermeasures have far-reaching implications for the emerging EV market in Canada and, by extension, the ongoing transition to sustainable transportation. Reducing tariffs on Chinese EVs could well quicken the pace of adoption of zero-emission vehicles by providing consumers with a larger range of cheap alternatives. At the same time, however, this needs to take into consideration the impacts on the domestic industry in question and how this will fit with Canada's environmental and economic objectives. Will Tesla manufacture in Canada? In light of escalating trade tensions and proposed tariffs that could significantly impact Tesla's pricing and competitiveness in Canada, the prospect of Tesla establishing manufacturing operations within the country has garnered attention. Such a move could serve as a strategic response to mitigate the effects of import duties and align with local incentives promoting domestic production. Tesla has already established a notable presence in Canada through strategic acquisitions and facility developments. In 2019, Tesla acquired Hybar Systems, a Richmond Hill-based company specializing in high-speed battery manufacturing systems. This acquisition led to the establishment of Tesla Toronto Automation, focusing on producing battery manufacturing equipment. By 2021, Tesla expanded its footprint with a new facility in Markham, Ontario, dedicated to building state-of-the-art equipment for its global gigafactories. In its endeavor to strengthen its electric vehicle (EV) supply chain, Tesla filed applications with the Ontario government that exhibit interest in constructing an industrial setting dedicated to the extraction and processing of minerals. This initiative further points to Tesla's intent to obtain crucial raw materials for EV batteries, with Ontario as a key player in the industry. Ontario's treasuries of nickel and cobalt will also make the province attractive to the envisioned operations of Tesla. These two, among other minerals, are major building blocks in the fabrication of lithium-ion batteries, which Tesla uses in producing electric vehicles. By putting up mineral extraction and processing in the province, Tesla would strengthen its chain control in the battery supply with the hope of decreasing costs and risks associated with outside suppliers. Tesla's timing is in tandem with several events in Ontario related to the automotive sector. Most recently, Volkswagen has announced plans to build a factory worth $7 billion in St. Thomas, Ontario.
Gigafactories that Volkswagen is making for batteries to build the future around the world,
which came as a result of securing $13 billion in subsidies from provincial and federal governments. This trend is emblematic of a more general trend, where large automakers enter such a route recognizing the strategic profile bringing to their operations. Tesla's proactive strategy entails hiring staff who will walk with the company through the regulatory dance. The hire of a former battery mineral advisor to the Ontario government as its critical minerals and supply chain policy advisor represents Tesla's commitment to build bridges between the government and the firm, while also promoting compliance with local laws. In order to vertically integrate its operations, Tesla seeks to pursue mineral extraction and processing in Ontario to ensure a dedicated supply of key minerals needed for its EV batteries. This path not only further entrenches Tesla's competitive position within the EV marketplace, but also adds to Ontario's economy while fortifying the province's status as a hotbed of innovation and sustainable technology. Broader effects on US-Canada relations. The recent imposition of 25% tariffs by the United States on Canadian imports, excluding a 10% tariff on energy products, has significantly strained the historically robust relationship between the two nations. In retaliation, Canada announced immediate 25% tariffs on $30 billion worth of US goods.
Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods,
with plans to extend these measures to an additional $125 billion in the coming weeks. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau criticized the US tariffs as very dumb and unjustified, particularly rejecting President Trump's claims linking Canada to insufficient efforts in combating fentanyl trafficking into the US. These escalating trade tensions have raised concerns about potential economic slowdowns and increased consumer prices across North America. The interconnected nature of the US, Canadian, and Mexican economies means that such tariffs could disrupt supply chains, leading to higher costs for manufacturers and consumers alike. Industries ranging from automotive to agriculture are bracing for the impact, with stakeholders urging for diplomatic resolutions to avoid prolonged economic repercussions. The tariffs have invoked public sentiment within Canada, leading to calls for a national boycott of all things American, including products and travel to the US. Firms report increasing preference among consumers for domestic goods, with some retailers labeling products to emphasize that they originate in Canada. Travel agencies have reported cancellations for US destinations, as Canadian travelers prefer other vacation alternatives. This sort of grassroots movement expresses a desire to assert economic independence and resilience against external forces. Trudeau has accused Trump of trying to wreck the Canadian economy in order to create a pathway to annex the US territory of Canada, an accusation that is only inflaming tensions. Meanwhile, US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick signaled that there could be room for negotiation, adding that Trump might meet Canada and Mexico in the middle with regard to these tariffs. The heat is off in the business world too. Lindt and Sprungli is trying to outsmart these tariffs by transferring some of its production from the United States to Europe to avoid retaliatory measures from Canada. And it's not just the chocolate guys. Industries across the board are shoring themselves against potential impacts of supply chain interruptions and increased consumer prices. These retaliatory measures have already sent the stock market into a spin. As trade tensions escalate, a new battleground emerges, where government rebates could tilt the scales between local and foreign electric vehicle manufacturers. Local rebates versus foreign EVs. The adoption of electric vehicles, EVs, is influenced by a combination of local incentives and the availability of foreign manufactured options. Financial incentives, such as tax rebates and subsidies, play a pivotal role in offsetting the higher upfront costs associated with EVs, making them more accessible to a broader range of consumers. For instance, the United States has issued $2 billion in EV tax rebates since January 1, 2024, covering over 300,000 vehicles, demonstrating the significant impact of such incentives on consumer purchasing decisions. However, the effectiveness of these incentives can vary based on their structure and consistency. In some regions, the reduction or elimination of subsidies has led to a noticeable decline in EV sales, highlighting the sensitivity of consumer demand to financial support mechanisms. Moreover, the influx of affordable foreign EVs, particularly from countries like China, has introduced competitive pricing pressures, challenging local manufacturers and influencing consumer choices. A car was not merely an item, a consumer good of substance or performance, but a home or manufacturer value as well as reliability noted in the senses of the customers. By rivaling the financial incentives that would make these products more attractive for locally produced vehicles, the local rebates would serve to make foreign EVs attractive on their advanced functionality and design, coupled with the fact that they are able to prop up brand equity. They would be in the balance in deciding the advantages of the incentives over personal commitments and personal reviews of quality. Ultimately, the interaction of the local incentives with the availability of imported EVs emphasizes the necessity for an integrated policy approach, where financial support goes along with competitive domestic offering development for its own EVs. Such a complete policy framework would seriously impact the transition from fossil fuel mobility to electric mobility and the pursuit of the environmental goal. In regions where local incentives abound, consumers would, arguably, prefer domestic EVs because of lower costs and the general idea of supporting local industry. Locally attractive aspects could even be lost in the lack or reduction of such incentives. For instance, when the U.S. federal tax credits seem about to be repealed, consumers would be drawn to foreign EV brands giving benefits considering that they offer heavy discounts in these cases, such as Polestar, which offered discounts to U.S. Tesla owners. This is a new strategy of an outside brand seeking to penetrate the market of an incentive-shifting landscape. The dynamism inherent in this tension between local rebates and foreign EV offerings indicates that adaptive and forward-thinking policies are all important. Governments have to think through immediate economic incentive measures and the much larger ramifications in the market supply chains and other free trade aspects of the promotion of consumer interest towards EVs to be affected through such incentives. This allows consumers to shape their fate in an economically tractable, sustainable way. Future outlook and possible negotiations. The escalating trade tensions between the United States and Canada have introduced significant uncertainties for consumers, particularly in the electric vehicle EV market. The US administration's imposition of a 25% tariff on Canadian imports has prompted Canada to retaliate with similar measures, including proposed 100% tariffs on specific US goods, such as Tesla vehicles. These developments have raised concerns about potential increases in vehicle prices, supply chain disruptions, and the overall affordability of EVs for Canadian consumers. From a consumer perspective, these tariffs could lead to substantial price hikes for popular EV models. For instance, the proposed 100% tariff on Tesla vehicles would effectively double their prices in Canada, making them less accessible to the average buyer. This scenario may prompt consumers to explore alternative EV options, potentially shifting their preferences toward domestically produced vehicles that are not subject to such tariffs. The ambiguity surrounding these trade policies has further raised fears regarding the future availability and diversity of EV choices in the Canadian market. Manufacturers who have faced increased costs because of tariffs may wind up reviewing the market strategies and even consider reducing the varieties of EV models offered to Canadian consumers. Such a scenario may be detrimental to the speed of EV adoption in Canada and hence threaten the environmental sustainability goals. In this light, and in the face of such challenges, negotiations between the US and Canadian governments must continue. A resolution likely to take into consideration both parties' grievances will go a long way towards stabilizing the market, thus ensuring that consumers continue to have a wide range of options in affordable EVs. Having such information and an understanding of the developments affecting possible changes would be most important for these consumers. It would also be helpful for these consumers to connect with their policymakers and voice their perspectives in adding to an outcome that would be most beneficial concerning economic and environmental interests. Elon Musk's Canadian ties. A parliamentary petition in Canada has garnered significant attention, with over 200,000 citizens signing to request the revocation of Elon Musk's Canadian citizenship, initiated by British Columbia author Qualia Reid and sponsored by New Democratic Party (NDP) Member of Parliament Charlie Angus. The petition accuses Musk of engaging in activities contrary to Canada's national interest, particularly due to his close association with US President Donald Trump. Elon Musk, born in South Africa, obtained Canadian citizenship in 1989 through his mother, May Musk, who hails from Saskatchewan. He later became a US citizen and is known for leading companies like Tesla, SpaceX, and the social media platform X, formerly Twitter. Recently, Musk has taken on a governmental role in the US as head of the Department of Government Efficiency under President Trump.
Can now send American astronauts into space. Come here. Take over, Elon. Yes, take over.
The petition asserts that Musk's involvement with the Trump administration poses a threat to Canadian sovereignty. It highlights Trump's aggressive stance toward Canada, including threats to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods.
But very importantly, tomorrow tariffs 25% on Canada.
And suggestions of annexing Canada as the 51st US state. These actions have strained the historically amicable relations between the two nations. Under the laws of Canada, denaturalization or revocation of citizenship is a rather lengthy process and is usually initiated in cases involving fraud, misrepresentation, or concealment of material facts at the time of application for citizenship. Experts say, however, that since Musk's citizenship was acquired legally by virtue of his being the son of a Canadian-born mother, such a petition would likely not lead to revocation. Such legal challenges notwithstanding, the petition actually reflects a growing sentiment among the populace of Canada against the perceived Musk tendency towards shaping policies that could erode the sovereignty of their country. The massive signatures provide evidence of the concern felt among Canadians regarding foreign political figures and their associates pulling the strings on national affairs. The petition remains open for signatures until June 20th, 2025, after which it will be taken to the House of Commons for discussion. While it is highly unlikely that Musk's citizenship will be revoked, the signature collection process is a symbolic gesture to remind Canadians of their importance in national sovereignty and the actions of influential people who may have an impact on such. The development highlights the complexities of global citizenship and the responsibilities associated with it, particularly for people at the highest echelons of influence. As the situation develops, it will be interesting to see how the Canadian government and Elon Musk react to these growing concerns. Global supply chain implications. The recent imposition of tariffs by the United States on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China has significant implications for global supply chains, particularly in the automotive and technology sectors. These measures, including a 25% tariff on Canadian and Mexican imports and a 10% tariff on Chinese products, aim to address economic and security concerns, but have introduced substantial challenges for industries reliant on international sourcing. In the automotive industry, manufacturers like Tesla, General Motors, and Toyota depend on integrated supply chains that cross North American borders multiple times during production. The newly imposed tariffs threaten to increase production costs, disrupt manufacturing processes, and potentially lead to higher prices for consumers. Industry experts warn that these tariffs could severely impact profitability and result in significant job losses within the sector. The technology sector is also vulnerable, as companies such as Tesla and SpaceX rely on global supply chains for components and materials. The tariffs could lead to increased costs and operational challenges, prompting businesses to reevaluate their sourcing strategies and consider reshoring or diversifying suppliers. This shift may result in short-term disruptions, but could also encourage investment in domestic manufacturing capabilities over time. Beyond individual industries, the tariffs are contributing to broader economic uncertainties, including potential inflationary pressures and shifts in trade relationships. Countries affected by U.S. tariffs may implement retaliatory measures, further complicating the global trade environment. These dynamics underscore the need for businesses to remain agile and proactive in navigating the evolving landscape of international trade policies. Trade tensions are being warned as an alarming evoker of recession. Jeffrey Solomon, the U.S. dedicated president of TD Cowen, warned that in the last half of 2025, the U.S. economy would go into a recession based on the gathering of all these tariffs. Cuts in supply chains are likely to reduce business investments and consumer confidence, and also retaliatory measures from affected countries, resulting in slow growth in economic development. Amid escalating trade tensions, both governments and citizens are rallying behind bold strategies to reclaim control over their economic destinies. Political reactions and strategies. Provincial leaders echoed Trudeau's sentiments, implementing measures to counteract the U.S. tariffs.
Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford threatened to cut off energy supplies to the U.S., highlighting the province's significant role in cross-border energy trade. Quebec's Premier François Legault supported increasing export taxes on U.S. goods and advocated for removing American products from local markets. These actions underscored a collective stance among Canadian provinces to protect their economic interests. Beyond governmental responses, Canadian citizens initiated grassroots movements to boycott American products and services. This surge in economic nationalism led to increased consumer preference for domestically produced goods, with businesses labeling products to indicate Canadian origin. Travel to the US declined as Canadians opted for alternative destinations, reflecting a broader desire to assert economic independence and resilience in the face of external pressures. Amidst those tensions in North America, the collaborating parties engaged in diplomatic efforts to the stabilization of trade relations. Steve Verhoeven was the co-founder of the Coalition for North American Trade, CNAT, alongside a major trade negotiator for Canada, who took part in formulating the US-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA. The coalition's mission is to garner support for the benefits of long-term trade and show how it incorporates current economic strife, the trade war using such support, particularly within the US, to sway the administration from any further escalation of a trade war. Verheul pointed out that tariffs compromised the USMCA and recommended no review of the agreement, arguing that what the US should really be looking at is not Canada, but misdirected tariffs as those aimed at repatriating jobs. They have been included in these federal and provincial responses, as well as actions taken by Canadian businesses and consumers directly against US tariffs via economic means. Many have heavily branded products as Canadian so that consumers will purchase domestically. Because of this, a significant change in consumption behavior has occurred, and most of it shows high consumer demand for products produced locally. In fact, travel bookings into the US have declined considerably, according to travel agencies who suggest that Canadians are taking their vacations elsewhere. This clearly signifies a greater desire to economically stand on one's own or strengthen economic ties to avoid outside pressures. Thank you for joining us today. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. And before you go, check out the next video on your screen for more engaging content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.